Greetings to all of you, and I want to say that I hope this conference is going to be successful, and that all of you will leave the conference feeling a lot more inspired, as well as learning the importance of speech. Speech is an important part of life. It is an important medium through which we can communicate both our thoughts and our feelings. We often find that we are not really expressing what is innermost in our hearts and minds. We either sugarcoat and misrepresent the things that we actually want to say, or we get angry, and anger drives us to say other things besides what we really want to communicate. So a big part of communication is to be able to control both your anger and also to remember that honesty and speaking what is really in your mind and what you want to communicate is important. So this festival, I'm sure, will help us to work towards better communication strategies and better ways in which we can communicate our innermost thoughts. I hope all of you will enjoy and will take away a lot from this conference. Thank you, and wish you all the best.
My name is Kumani Mogeri. I'm one of the founders of the TAB NPC. TAB NPC is an organization for creatives which seeks to create sustainable environment for creatives in the practice. We get to empower our creatives to find ways of enterprising their art. They are not just entertainers, but they are business people who are making money out of the art. So we've got programs that we run for them. A lot has happened, especially during COVID. We witnessed a situation where creatives who were dependent on grants, they couldn't make ends meet, and there was a lot of protest that we have seen. And that was also a wake-up call to say we are doing the right thing. And it is important also to create awareness in society that our people who are in the creative space, they deserve recognition and acknowledgement and reward, just like a plumber, just like a carpenter, just like an accountant, just like any profession you can name. So part of the work that we do is to try and create that awareness to say, when you have a creative in your event, they're as good as the person who's doing the decor, the whom you have paid 50,000 rand. That's what is important and a part of the work that you do. We are grateful today to work in partnership with World Speech Day, South Africa, led by Vino here, who will come to the floor just after me, because World Speech Day, which will expand more in terms of what it seeks to achieve, we found it a perfect partner, because today here we've got our storytellers who will come and use the power of their voice and speech making to send messages across the world and the community at large, who will use the power of their creative art to engage the audience and convey messages that would sometimes not be commonly conveyed if we are using the non-conventional, the common methods of engagement. So we're here to mark the World Speech Day in this fashion, and I'd love to say to everyone who's here, you are welcomed as we gather here at Constitution Hill, a place that has got a lot of history in our country, and this history and the significance of the place that we are at here is highly regarded across the continent and beyond the borders of the continent. Everywhere you go, I'm likely to have traveled the continent and beyond the continent, but everywhere you go, people will tell you about Nelson Mandela, they will tell you about Bishop Tutu, they will tell you about Winnie, they will tell you, if they can't put names to South Africa, but everybody feels represented by the work that the giants that have built this country have done. And how did they do it? They used the power of their voice. They did not use violence, no guns, no nuclear. They didn't use any bombs. They spoke. And they spoke truth to power. And this is the truth to power, the truth to our communities, which we will still be able to take across using the power of our voice. So we are blessed in that regard. And on that note, I declare the session open. And I'll invite you, Vino,
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for opening the session and for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome. Thank you for being here. So just to give you some context with respect to this event, we're calling this our flagship event. So I'm with World Speech Day South Africa, and I joined at the end of 2016, and we set up as a non-profit.
Welcome to the Virtual Women's Forum, a groundbreaking initiative empowering women across generations. This collaboration between WSD women and the East African community. Women's intergenerational dialogue paves the way for transformative connections. Our mission is to unite senior women leaders with young visionaries for mentorship and impactful dialogue. Centered on the theme, the role of digital technologies and social media in enhancing women's leadership and empowerment, we aim to inspire change. Join us as we explore barriers and best practices in business, technology, media, politics, and academia. Launched on International Women's Day 2025, this forum marks a decade of World Speech Day's global celebrations. Hosted by World Speech Day South Africa, we ignite momentum toward the upcoming East African Community Intergenerational Dialogue. This June and July, the dialogue continues at the EAC headquarters in Arusha, Tanzania. Together, we foster a future where women lead fearlessly, empowered by digital tools and networks. Through shared experiences and wisdom, we cultivate a space for growth and innovation. Join us in this transformative journey, and let's shape the future of women's leadership together.
Today I have the opportunity to interview Ambassador Fatuma Ndangisa, who is the Rwandan member of the East African Legislative Assembly. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. I wish to express my gratitude to you for affording us the opportunity to collaborate with you on the launch of the Virtual Women's Forum. This initiative is a significant step forward in strengthening our efforts towards advancing gender equality. And as you know, World Speech Day Women is a United Nations Generation Equality commitment maker. And for that reason, this platform allows us to continue our advocacy efforts under the theme of feminist movements and leadership. And the reason we're doing this is because we are launching this virtual women's forum, which is a build up towards the second intergenerational dialogue taking place in Arusha, Tanzania in June, July this year. And World Speech Day Women is supporting your initiative through the launch of this virtual Women's Forum. It would be fitting for us to kick off the series, which will be followed by a number of other women who will be speaking from different countries, firstly in Africa, so that we give it a continental perspective, and then we reach out beyond Africa. And as we've said, the purpose of it is for women in leadership positions to provide mentorship and guidance to aspiring young women leaders, and for young women to also provide support by ways of technology and so on to older women who are sometimes perhaps intimidated or feel as though they are limited in terms of their capacity with respect to technology. So to kick off, I would like to ask you a few questions, starting with your journey. Your Excellency, could you share with us your personal journey into leadership and some of the key moments that shaped your path, and how you, as a woman in leadership, in a leadership position, experienced challenges? What were some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Thank you, my sister Bino Pile, and the Executive Director for World Speech Day Women, South Africa. And I want to start by thanking you for agreeing to collaborate with the East African Legislative Assembly Women Caucus, which is a platform that brings together women members of parliament from the East African community that are all members of parliament, and our mission is to champion gender equality and women empowerment. And as you already said, we normally organize intergenerational dialogue. The first of its kind was conducted last year, where we brought together women leaders, both senior and young women, to share experiences, to speak to each other, but with the objective of really providing mentorship and role modeling to the young generation who are the leaders of today and tomorrow. So the question about my personal story of leadership, it's a long story. It's been a journey, and just like many other women, there have been ups and downs. But I'll say that during my formative years, when I was a child, the experience of leadership was a time when I was in school, both primary and secondary school. That's where I started exercising leadership. I was nominated by my peers to lead them as a class monitor. And then in secondary school, I was also a leader. And although it was at a very low level, it laid the foundation for me to learn more about leadership and to learn really that leadership is a responsibility, that once people have trust and confidence in you, you have to try and meet their aspirations. But when it comes to politics, I will say that some of the moments or inspiring events that led me to join politics was immediately after my university education, where Of course, I've been a refugee like many other Rwandans because of the unfortunate events in my country. From the time of post-colonial Rwanda, we had systems of governance that never embraced all Rwandans as citizens, and because of that, some of our parents were forced to leave Rwanda as far back as 1950s, and they fled to Uganda, my parents, and that's where I was born. And therefore, growing as a refugee child, although I want to thank my host, the hosting country, they hosted us well, but of course, we are always reminded that we are refugees. We are not treated equally like citizens. And therefore, when an opportunity came in 1990, when other Rwandans, mostly refugees and others who are facing challenges outside the country, had organized themselves in a political movement called the Rwanda Patriotic Front, and the mission was really to liberate the country, ensure that there was national unity, reconciliation, and that Rwanda was a country for each and everyone, irrespective of your background, where you came from. And therefore, I thought that was a moment to also be part of the liberation struggle. And I started as a political cadre, especially with the mission of empowering women, especially women refugees, mainly to conscientize them about the need to return back home, but also to sensitize them about their role in politics, in economics, in making sure that they can also play their rightful role as women. And therefore, that's, to me, was the starting point for me to enter really politics. The second moment that was also very important for me, as you know, Rwanda experienced a genocide in 1994, where 1 million lives were lost in a period of 100 days. The Rwanda Patriotic Front stopped genocide. And after that, a government of national unity, a transitional government of national unity that brought together both the Rwanda Patriotic Front and other political parties that never participated in genocide, decided to work together to rebuild the nation and also start creating institutions, both parliament, cabinet of ministers, other institutions. But the biggest challenge was try and restore hope among Rwandans. You can imagine, after what we went through, so many orphans, so many widows, so many perpetrators, many returnees, and of course we had a new wave of refugees, and of course the country had been destroyed. We were starting from scratch, everything. And I had an opportunity to work with the Ministry of Gender by that time. And I want to say that that is where I started working for government. It was an experience now in a formal institution where I can also make a contribution in rebuilding my country in a space or in a space that I was already used to working with women. And during that time, I was able to grow from ranks, from a technical person to a senior or to managerial levels. And maybe I can mention two areas where one was a personal assistant to the Minister of Gender, in fact to two ministers. And then later I was the Director for Women in Development. And that gave me an opportunity really to advise on matters of policy for gender, coming up with laws that address challenges facing women, like enacting an inheritance law that allowed women, girls and women to own now property. Initially it was only for male, but also influencing processes like the constitution making process, where by bringing women together, especially the National Women Council, the women civil society, they were able to advocate for their rights, but to ensure that participation of women in decision making in all spheres of life was a constitutional mandate. And that was very successful. And in our constitution today, gender equality is a constitutional responsibility of the government, of all institutions of governance, and also to ensure that a minimum of 30% representation is an affirmative action, whether it is in a ministry, whether it is in parliament, local government. At least 30% have to be women. And that explains why, for example, today in Parliament, 63.8% of the recently elected Parliament of Rwanda are women, which is so far the first one globally. And for the first time in the Senate, we have 53.8%. Of course, there could be challenges here and there, and I don't want to go so much into details, but I just wanted to share with you that background, how I started real leadership path. And of course, I've been to many portfolios. I once served as the Executive Secretary for the National Unity and Reconciliation Commission. And that was a body that was charged for reconciling and healing the nation after the brutal genocide we went through. And as the CEO by that time of that organization that I led for almost 7 years, I was responsible for day-to-day management, coordination, resource mobilization, making sure that we had policies in place, programs, initiatives that can bring our people together. And I'm happy to note that today Rwandans are more reconciled. And apart from that, I also served as a diplomat representing my country in Tanzania, and also accredited to many countries from southern part of Africa. And at the level of the African Union, I also served in a body or a mechanism called the African Peer Review Panel of Eminent Persons that is in charge of governance in Africa, where I was not only a member of that panel, but I also served in leadership position as the deputy chairperson and later chairperson. And then today, as we speak, I'm a member of parliament in the East African Legislative Assembly representing Rwanda, but also a Secretary General for EALA Women Caucus. As I said, this is a parliamentary caucus bringing together female parliamentarians to advocate for gender equality and the empowerment of women. So briefly, that has been my journey. It's over 30 years now in public leadership. You ask about challenges. And I remember also when I was vying to become the chairperson of the African Peer Review Panel of Eminent Persons. I was standing, there was a gentleman from North Africa who wanted that position, and he happened to be older than me. But because of this patriarchy, he felt that he should be elected in that position, and I also felt I was able to do that. And he even tried to convince me to say, but why don't you leave it to me? Be my vice chairperson. I said, why don't we do it the same way? I become the chair, I become the vice chair. And of course, I was not happy. I had to, luckily enough, I was. Management of that time, managing the egos, the frustration, that feeling that it's a woman who have taken this position, who is younger than me, and sometimes even religious factors come in. Yeah, there are challenges, and every time they remind you, someone is perceiving me this way simply because I'm a woman. So, like in those cases, I had to accept myself and say, no way. I feel I'm competent. Let's go for a vote. If you win, fine. I'll congratulate you, but if I win, accept that. So briefly, those are some of barriers, social barriers, because we still have patriarchal system where most of our societies, even when you improve on the laws, you improve on the policies, but still deep in the mindset of the people, not only men, but even women, there's still a feeling that this is a place for men. But I want to say that here in Rwanda, because the many strides that we've taken, a lot of sensitization, there's been a positive mindset.
So I was thinking, it's been listening to your journey, it is so phenomenal, and your drive and determination, if anything, it's such an inspiration to our viewers and the women that will be joining this network and seeking guidance. And I think it's important for them to see that too. Your resilience, plays such a big part of your journey. But we spoke about challenges, and I think similarly, the opportunities also do exist as well for women leaders in East Africa. And can you tell us what opportunities you believe exist for aspiring women leaders and how they can take advantage of them?
There are so many opportunities for women leaders, and for the case of East Africa, I just want to say that the Beijing Platform for Action and the declaration was agreed upon by the nations of the world in 1995 and came up with a plan of action where 12 critical areas of concern to women were identified. I think it was a motivation for many countries, including East African countries. It became like a roadmap to drive the process of gender equality, and it inspired most of our countries to change or to review constitutions to ensure that issues of women empowerment and gender equality were integrated in the constitution. So today, as I speak, I know in Rwanda, our constitution is gender sensitive, but same applies to countries like Tanzania, like Uganda. Kenya have also worked on their constitution. Maybe the challenge has been on implementation. South Sudan is the same. So I see an opportunity for East African women in the constitution that favors the participation of women politically, economically, and socially. And this is very helpful, especially when it comes to the issue of women in decision making. You go to countries like Burundi, like Uganda, like even Tanzania, they are all above 35%. So which means that the minimum 30% that was agreed in Beijing, most of the East African countries have been able to attain that. We still have like 2-3 that are still struggling. So that for me is an important opportunity, especially for women in leadership. But when again you look at the economic empowerment of women, again there has also been a surge in the economic empowerment of women. Many countries have come up with initiatives either to have special microfinance for women or maybe have some windows in banks where women can have access to soft or maybe easy loans. Then you also have other organizations that are empowering women economically. There have been changes in some laws, including the one I talked about on inheritance, land management, and all this. For example, if women can now have access to land, it means that they are able to have collateral security in the banks. That was a challenge in the past.
Your closing thoughts as we celebrate International Women's Day. What message would you like to share with women across the region who are striving to make a difference in their communities and beyond? And what are your hopes for the future of women's leadership in East Africa and globally? If we could wrap up with that.
Yes, as I conclude, I want to first of all congratulate all the women in Africa and even beyond as we commemorate the International Women's Day tomorrow, which is a special time because, as I said, we are going to commemorate this day at a time when we are also commemorating 30 years of the Beijing Platform for Action. It's a time to congratulate women for the many achievements and strides they've made, but it is also an opportunity to reflect on where we still have gaps and build solidarity and collaboration to address those gaps. For example, issues of gender-based violence is still a challenge. We want women to be rich, economically empowered. We want more women in leadership. We've been told that it's going to take over 130 years to address gender parity in leadership. And we wish as soon as possible we should have 50-50. So I think there is a lot of work to do, but we can build on the great celebrations and the great strides that we have made and celebrate each and every woman, because I believe each and every woman counts. And I hope we shall have more stories of women, because I believe every woman's story is a masterpiece. Thank you.
Your Excellency, I would like to take this opportunity to say it is an honor to work alongside you on this initiative. I want to thank you once again for your commitment to empowering women and advancing our collective mission. And for our viewers, a detailed description of Ambassador Ndangisa is available in our video description. We look forward to taking the series further. We have big plans over the next year in terms of how we're going to bring women together to share and to grow. I would like our viewers to join us next time as we have Judge Sarah Zouhir from Casablanca, Morocco, who is Judge Zouhir is a professor in the High Institute of Magistrates in Morocco, who will be leading us into discussion then. And I encourage our viewers to follow the conversation and to be a part of it and to help us make a meaningful impact. Ambassador Ndangisa, thank you so much for your time, and you have a good evening.
Thank you so much, my sister, for inviting me once again on the show. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate you and World Speech Day for the 10th anniversary that you are going to commemorate in line with the International Women's Day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your well wishes.
Yeah.